welcome to Pure Inspiration. And as you know, Pure Inspiration is based on spiritual ascension and the life processes that bring us through a spiritual awakening can differ between each individual. It could be trauma, it could be an event that happens, it could be the loss of a loved one, or it could be an addiction. And today we're going to be talking about addiction and enabling someone who is addicted. And today I have a very special guest with me, and her name is Kathy also. So you have two Kathys. But I'm introducing Kathy to you, and she was gracious enough to come on here today and tell her story. So I'm going to let her take the lead now and tell you a little bit about herself.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah,
Excuse me. So yeah, I'm Kathy. Nice to see you all, and I hope you're all are well. I guess I call myself an alcoholic. I'm in recovery. I have been for about 8.5 years, and it's been a journey. And I started out just like anybody else, young teenager, hanging out with friends, never felt quite like I fit in. I had moved around a lot as a kid, and then I had a mom who was diagnosed with a terminal illness. I had 2 younger brothers at the time, and there was a lot of, I had young parents. My father was 16 when he had me, my mother was 18, and they didn't exactly know what they were doing, and no fault through their own, they were young, but there was a lot of chaos and turmoil, and I went from living in New York, being born and raised in New York, to moving to a small town in South Dakota, and I definitely did not feel like I fit in. And so when we finally moved back to New York, I was about 12. I was eager to make friends. I was eager to fit in, and it started out drinking, dabbling, and other things, and I took that first sip of alcohol, so to speak, and I felt like they say in the big book, I had arrived, and that's truly how I felt. And by the time I was 21, I met my now ex-husband, and we both were alcoholic. We did not know that then, but we definitely loved to drink, we loved to party, we had kids. He progressed in his disease a little quicker than I did, and there was a lot of codependency, enabling on both our parts. I can remember him being hungover and sick, and me calling him out of work, or crazy stuff, like we had found a doctor's script, a prescription pad, and I would write fake doctor's notes for him to get out of work, like pure insanity. And that went on until he got sober in 2001, and I didn't. And that led to a lot of almost even harder times. I had lost my drinking buddy. I had to sneak around more to do the things that I wanted. He was gone a lot trying to do his recovery, and I guess he it's weird, like somebody gets better and somebody's sick, but even the person getting better is still sick. I've learned that in recovery. Even I'm still an alcoholic. I'm still going to do things that like trying to live my best life and do the next right thing. But sometimes when you're in that kind of I'm gonna say toxic relationship, codependent, enabling. I think he liked the fact that I was still a sick and suffering alcoholic, like, cause it made him better than me in some weird way, and he enabled my addiction, and you know, I had family that drank like me, partied like me, and when the time came, when I hit my bottom, which was October 1st, 2013, actually it was September 27th, 2013, I found a rehab. I made that phone call myself. I was a mess. I was emotionally broken. I was spiritually broken. I had nothing to look forward to. By this point, my husband was drinking again, and I knew one of us or both of us were going to end up dead. And I couldn't do. I didn't want that life. I didn't want that life for my kids. I often say when I tell my story that I was homicidal and suicidal at the time. Like, I was going to kill him and then kill myself. And God, or higher power, whatever you want to call it, came over me, and my kids flashed before my eyes, and I knew I did not want that for myself. And the best decision I ever made was picking up that phone and finding a place to go to, and that started my journey into recovery. With that being said, it was not easy. There are people in your family, friends, you know, they didn't see me as this person who drank every day. I wasn't stashing liquor bottles. I partied like them, I drank like them, and it scared them. And they were like, "You're not an alcoholic." Like, they could not, because
they were in denial.
They were
complete denial.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's hard. It's like when I lost my drinking buddy, and even my father was my drinking buddy for a long time. We'd go on family vacations, and we'd have each other. You know, our spouses weren't around, and, you know, we were each other's friends, we were each other's hanging out. We'd watch the kids together, his grandkids, my nieces and nephews. And denial is real. It's so real. Nobody wants to be the alcoholic, and nobody wants to think that they are enabling an alcoholic. The enablers in my life, and I love them, and I'm not, and look, I can be it in recovery myself. We think we have people pleasing in us, and we want to fix things and make things better, right? And we don't want to necessarily see our loved ones hurting or hit their bottom. But me as an alcoholic, an addict, I needed to hit that bottom. And I hit it, and some people don't hit it for a long time because they have people, you know, buying them food, putting a roof over their head, whatever they think, buying their drug, even giving them money for drugs or alcohol, because they don't want to see that person in pain. And I get it. And I guess along with enabling, somewhere along the line, I had to learn like how to detach with love. I'm sure you've heard of that. And give it to God, and let these people just find their way without my help. Because I know for my
Tough love? You mean tough love?
It is tough love. It is, because it's not so much tough on them. I think it's tougher on us.
The enabler?
Yeah.
Because we want to nurture them, like our first instinct is to nurture them, but we're actually not nurturing it. And I remember that time, and my son is all you know. I've lost my son from addiction, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. And I know there came that time where I had to shut the door in his face, because that's what needed to happen. And he did at that time recover, got stable on his feet, but then life situations happened that took him down that road again. And he was with people that did it too. So the codependency, birds of a feather flock together. And it's sort of like they empower each other, like, okay, what we're doing is okay because somebody else is doing it, but it's not okay. And like you said, you hit rock bottom, and you get to that point where, you know, something. Can you tell us a little bit about? You said a little bit about like divine intervention, like at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely like I had done, you know, I had done like the drinking and the partying, and I wake up sick the next day, and I'm, you know, throwing up in the toilet, and doing the toilet foxhole prayer, like, oh God, if you make me feel better, I'll never drink again. And then of course by like the end of the night, I'm drinking again, or even like maybe not that night, but the next night, and I woke up, and my husband and I got drunk the night before. We got into a huge fight, like physical, like both of us, like we were just going at it. And I woke up the next morning, and it was the first time I had prayed to God where I was like, I need you, I need help. I think I asked him for a sign, and that's when I went on my phone, and I ended up finding a women's recovery center in Florida, because I knew I had to get away. I had to get out of the state. For me, that's what I had to do, because I'm a mother. I'll find any excuse, like, you know, not to go or whatever, but I just knew, and boom, there it was. It was like, I prayed to God, I looked at my phone, there was the recovery center. I was like, that's where I want to go. I made the phone call, and the rest is history. And even now, I mean, when I look back on it, it was a miracle, because I was so far from God. The God I had grown up with was, you know, judgmental, did not love me unconditionally, just guilt-ridden, shame. And the God I found in recovery, my higher power, so to speak, is so forgiving. And I never knew that. And it is, most importantly, and I think this is for enablers and people in recovery, we are so hard on ourselves. You know, like, I'm sure, you know, my sister-in-law, my ex-husband's sister, we lost our nephew to addiction. And he accidentally killed himself or overdosed, but in actuality he had wanted to die. He even told us, but we didn't, like, he was going to be turning 25, and he said at Easter dinner, like, he wasn't going to make it to 25. He was going to be 24 forever. And we thought, you know, like many of us say, oh, I'm going to be 29 forever. But sure enough, we didn't take him seriously, and 3 days later he was gone. And I know there was a lot of blaming, of the parents blaming each other. You know, her husband was upset with her that she coddled him too much. She didn't show that tough love. They didn't force him to go to they didn't have that intervention, so to speak. And, you know, the fact of the matter is, I'm not sure if there's anything. I mean, I was in recovery, and I tried to talk to my nephew about it. It's so hard, and I can't put my finger on it, but there is that guilt and shame of having not done enough for somebody who has died through addiction, right? But the fact of the matter is, at some point, I am responsible for my recovery, and I can't blame anybody else for it. And I think that's
Is that a tendency of addicts to blame others
oh yeah
for what they do and shift the blame onto them, like it's all your fault that my behavior's like this, or try to flip things, like,
Oh, we're manipulative creatures.
yeah, they try to flip the situation and make it look like you're the bad person. Sort of like, yeah, manipulation.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's why we have the 12 steps in recovery. And what's so great about Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever fellowship you're in, and you know, I just want, because it is out there, and they have Al-Anon, which is for the enablers, the codependent people, and there's the 12 steps, right? And it's some way along the line we take accountability for our actions, and that's when the blame game stops. And by the 12th step, you've had that spiritual awakening that they talk about, but you have to go through like the first, you know, 11 to get to that, and part of it is writing your resentments towards the people who you think have harmed you. And what ends up happening is, once you tell, you know, you admit it to yourself, to God and another person, right? Mm-hmm. You realize what your part is in it. And that goes for both sides. I mean, look, nobody's perfect. We do all have our parts to play. And I know it's touchy, it's hard because, like, I've been blessed. My kids they don't have a drug and alcohol problem, right? So I don't know what that's like. I know what it was like to be married to that person. And when we were going through it, and he was so-called worse than me in the beginning, crying to him, begging him not to, you know, drink, not to go out, not to disappear, you know, all of it. But there was nothing I could say or do, you know.
And that's where faith comes in. And it's that letting go and letting God, and having enough faith to be doing that, because it's like, we know in our hearts and we want to have faith, but then we have the mind that tries to overtake, you know, and all the thoughts and things that go through your head and the lies that the enemy tells you. And it's like, you know, but you know in your heart that something's wrong, and you know, you'll make excuses along the way, but you know that, you know, all along, like, there's that little voice inside you that's telling you, you know. And some people are fortunate enough, like Kathy, to hear that voice and to win the spiritual warfare, because Kathy has won the spiritual warfare, and I'm very proud of her. It's been 8.5 years for her, and like, it's a blessing that she won the spiritual warfare, and it was her faith that helped her to do that, because without that faith, you know, and the support that you needed to get through it.
And absolutely, and then it's one day at a time, because there's days, I told you when we met, I was really hating on myself, and I was feeling that blame game happening, like, if only this hadn't happened, if only he hadn't done this, and blah 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 blah. And the fact of the matter is, I had lost faith, and I was not hitting my knees every day, and I was not praying. And I'm not a very religious person, but I am a very spiritual person, and I had lost all of that, and I'm in recovery, and that's not a good place to be. It's because I can't turn to drugs and alcohol, right? I mean, I can, but
So you have to go within at that point.
Oh my God, did I have to? And I reached out, and I'm very fortunate, you know, to have people to walk into my life like you did.
Oh.
I'm serious. Like, I literally was telling her I work out at another place called Pure Bar, and I kept driving by your place, and I'm like, I think I'm gonna try it out. You know, I don't know if you know, but she does hair.
I do hair.
Sorry, I didn't start coughing. But And it was so cute and it was so funny. And I came with my boyfriend and we just all like lit each other up and we were laughing. And that was God. And that was me starting to like pray and do the work. It's, you know, faith, what does that say? Faith without works is dead.
Yes.
Right? And it's
Yes.
so true.
Yes.
Like I have to, in order to have that faith, I have to pray.
Absolutely. Because God's on standby up there. He's like, okay, you know, I'm here. Hello. Do you see me?
Yeah.
You know, because we have our own free will, and we can choose that free will and go in a different direction. But if we pray and we stay in prayer daily, and Lord, thy will be done. God has beautiful and amazing things for us and nothing but the best for us. But we choose our own will, and then sometimes if we're fortunate enough, and I call it fortunate, hitting ground zero, you're very fortunate if that happens to you, because that's a wake-up call. And God, you know, you're winning the spiritual warfare. You're winning it. And you're not so far gone that you're going to lose. And it's like, but I don't think we really lose when we do lose a loved one to addiction, because if it wasn't for that loss, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. And I've helped a lot of people, and I've written my books and everything. So sometimes God's plan is a little bit different, you know, than we expect, but we don't see it at the time when we do lose a loved one from addiction. But later on, we're like, wow, you know, yes, that one life was lost, but look how many other lives were saved. And God works like that. He might spare one for maybe 100. And it's his plan. And it's such a blessing to receive that divine intervention and that divine call, that wake-up call. And
how beautiful is that? Because we're talking about the blame game, and we all can do it, right? We all bargain, you know.
Yeah.
We all, right? Well, I'm sure you. There was a lot of times where you were like praying for your son and bargaining with God and doing the whole thing, right? But it's not our will. It is God's will. Thy will be done. Speaking of the steps, it's made a decision to turn our will and lives over to the care of God as we understood him.
that's deep. That's beautiful. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's exactly what we have to do. We have to be in full surrender. It's like, and that's what faith is. Faith is full surrender. Like, do you trust God enough to just let go and let God? Like with an enabler is trying to fix the problem instead of stepping back, and I had to do this, and stepping back and saying, okay, I trust you, God. I know you got this, and your plan is the best plan there is, and I can't control this, because an enabler is trying to control at some point, thinking they can fix it. That's control, and that's not letting go and letting God, and that's not faith.
Right.
And when we finally do let go and let God and have that faith in him that it's going to be thy will be, and let go and say thy will be done for the highest good of all. And that's, like I said, it turns out to be the highest good of all, even if we lose someone.
Absolutely. And I don't know if this helps anybody out there. When I am in resentment, or there's things beyond my control, you know, it says we're not to pray for ourselves, but for the other people, especially the people we think that have harmed us, right? Or is suffering. And what happens is, and it's so true, I had to do a lot of praying this past couple of weeks for my ex-husband, you know what I'm saying? And he's the last person I want to pray for. But I'm just keeping it real. But the fact of the matter is, he's the father of my children, and he's back in recovery. He's early in recovery, and there were things he was doing I didn't agree with, and I got hurt by it, and a lot of stuff was coming up. and I was really angry, and that was part of my pain and suffering, like all over again in sobriety. I had to hit my knees and start praying for him. And usually what I do is I pray for anybody, and you know, whether you're the enabler, you have somebody who's suffering, who's sick, and you really need to let it go, and you really do need to let God. I pray for health, wealth, and prosperity, and body, mind, and spirit. I pray they learn forgiveness of themselves and others. Like, and what happens is, all that anxiety and all that anger and resentment within you melts away. I can't explain it, but it's true.
Because love conquers all.
Absolutely.
It does, and it's God is love.
And it's hard to love unlovable people. And I get, and it is. It's like,
but it's unconditional
but
love.
it's right. I mean, God loves us, right? And we are like, we in my mind, I look, you know, I'm like, I'm great, I'm perfect, but I'm not, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I get sarcastic and I get short with people, and honestly, when I'm like that, it doesn't sit right in my soul.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't feel good, and you know, there's a situation in my family going on right now, and I want to go up there and fix it, right?
You want to be the fixer.
I want to be the fixer. Like, I got this, I want to help, you know, my niece, I want to, you know, help with the baby, and I don't have it like that. I have to stay put, and I have to let God do his work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I can do. I can be there by phone, I can be there by text. You know, and I had to remove myself from my family life after my divorce, because, you know, it wasn't working out with me living with my older son and his now wife, and we were fighting like all the time. And this is me in sobriety, acting like a lunatic, and I had to get out of there. And it was scary, and I'd never done that before. I had never been on my own. But I tell you, it saved my relationship with my sons and their wives, girlfriends. I got 2 beautiful granddaughters now. I get to swoop in, play grandma, and then I'm like, bye, see you in a couple. But I really, you know, that's the thing. I think even with enablers, we get so focused on the other people, we're not letting God do their work, and we lose ourselves. And it's an addiction as well.
It is. Being an enabler is an addiction. You want to be a fixer, you know, and you want to fix it, and I can do this. But I love them, and I want to show God that I love somebody. But at the same time, it's like, I know when I did the tough love with my son, he actually did get on his feet, and he got his own home, and he got a puppy, and everything, and then for some reason, I don't know why, he went back down into that dark hole again, and I could only think that, you know, it was the people that he was around.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily, he's got to take, I know he's not here and everything, but he had a part to play in that, right? Because he
has a choice.
He has a choice at that point, and we turn away from God again. And I've done it in sobriety, so I get it. I'm not judging him. I've done it.
Right.
And I literally, when I was going through my divorce, I wasn't going to meetings. You know, that's what helped me stay sober once I got out of rehab. I was mad. I was angry. I didn't want to drink. I was stubborn enough. I did not want to start my day count over, right? Because that's like a big deal in sobriety, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was losing my mind. I pushed just as many people away in sobriety by my behavior than when I was out there drinking. And that's because I didn't keep up. I didn't pray to God every day. I didn't go to my meetings. I wasn't of service to others. And that's a big, huge part of recovery for anybody, whether you're the enabler or the alcoholic. I mean, you're helping me. You know, like I heard your story, and I think you mentioned it, and me and my boyfriend were like, we're in recovery. Like, it just came out, you know? And
it just all fell into place. Divine intervention, I mean, divinely orchestrated. to the T how God brings us all together. And that's what we mean about letting go and letting God, because God will set up certain situations, certain people in your life at the perfect moment. I mean, sometimes I'll have messengers walk in my door and give me a message from God, like, hello.
Well, when I saw, I work in the service industry. I happened to have last Saturday off, and I went to a meeting with my boyfriend, and I heard this guy share, and I came here, and you were like, oh, I did a podcast last week, and I'm like, I'll watch it. She was doing my hair, and I was getting my hair did, as they say in the South. And I'm looking at the guy, and I'm like, I think I know this guy, and I'm looking, and I said, and you're like, oh, I know him from his wife. She works next door, and then I hear his story, and I go, oh my God, his mom's a preacher. Before he even said it, and you're like, yeah. I was like, I just heard this guy share, and I'd never been to that meeting before, and we had just only met, and that's how God works. When you are doing the next right thing, and you are putting your faith and trust into God, that's how it works. And when that happens, I get like chills and goosebumps all over me. You know?
And now that can be confirmation in other ways too, because if anyone doesn't know, Kathy's talking about Zach, and he is the previous interview prior to this one, because I approached Zach and I said, this is what I want to do, you know, I want to get it out there, I want to help people. And I think hearing, like, not like there's no celebrities here, we're all real people. And here I was a TV spokesmodel, but
I used to do it now.
Anyways, it's like
we're just regular.
Real people with real stories is what I wanted, because I see a lot of the other channels that, you know, all these famous people they're interviewing and stuff, and it's like I want to interview real people with real life stories and real situations, but what Kathy was referring to was Zach, you know, last week, and you can listen to that podcast. It was prior to this one. And we get different viewpoints on the subject and different, you know, experiences. And everybody's story out there is different. So I feel like if I have different experiences and different podcasts, and right now we've been dealing with drug and alcohol addiction, but there's a lot of other addictions out there too. And I just think bringing the awareness to everyone that you're not alone and there is help out there for you. And if you do let go and let God, He'll show you that help.
It's true. And you might, like a lot of people coming in, you know, into recovery, the last thing they want to hear about is God, right? Because we have this preconceived notion of what God, or He wasn't there for us. Talk about like the plane came, and I'm sure it happens with enabling. Like you didn't save my son. You might have said, I'm sure there was a dark period in your life where you were maybe mad at God. And what's so great about God is He sits and waits for us. And if we're truly like in that, we call it the gift of desperation, where I was just like, all right, whatever, like, okay, I'll try it, you know. And sometimes in recovery, if you're just coming in or you're thinking about it, if you know, going to a meeting is your way, or going to rehab, acceptance, surrendering. And like, you know, this chair for right now could be your higher power. Like that's how simple it could be, until you build that faith and you see God working in your life. And you know, I mean, I don't know, I'm blessed. I was joking with a friend of mine today. She's in early recovery, and we were talking about enabling and how her parents and family see her right now because she's in early recovery. I told her, I said, if you just give it a try, it's going to be so worth it. And you know, she's like, well, I don't like hearing about God all the time. And I go, I know, but She goes, well, in rehab, they told me the doorknob could be my higher power. And I'm like, yeah, it sure can. And it's just so basic. And I go, look, I'm telling you right now, I said, your life is going to be so much better. I said, I'm living in a trailer with a man that loves me, and I'm a waitress with no health insurance. But I'm telling you now, it is so much better than when I had the house, the husband, and health insurance. I'm like, I'm telling you, I'm living in a mobile home. And I'm like, I had nothing. I had this big mansion and a nice, humble home. But, I was miserable. I was in so much pain. I just, like, I can't express enough, like, yeah, and we talk about this a lot, like, letting go and letting God, or these little God moments, like me just driving by every day. I'm like, I'm going to try this place one day.
Right, and a lot of people do that. Like, they make U-turns and everything to come in here. And that's how it's sort of turned into a ministry, because there's been people that have come to me. It's crazy. I call this God's home, because it's like so many people have come to me that have lost children or have lost loved ones to addiction, or have been through, and recently, like, a lot of, people that have been through addiction.
Yeah.
And I find it like such a blessing, and I get so excited. I'm like, look at God working today. Like, I'll come into work and say, wonder what God's going to do today, because there's always something. And if we don't pay attention and live in the present moment, we might miss out on an opportunity, because we shouldn't be thinking about the past or the future. We should be thinking about the now moment. And it's almost like Kathy said, they were taking one day at a time. Take one moment at a time. Even if you get past that first moment, you've made progress.
Yeah.
It's just because it becomes too overwhelming when you start thinking about the past and getting in the head, or thinking about the future and what it's going to be like. It's just embracing that present moment and embracing it for everything it is, because beautiful things will happen, and you just go with the flow. And I know that's easy to say, but it's a discipline of being present in the moment and letting go and surrendering and just going with the flow and letting God, like I always say, I'm the passenger in the car and Jesus is taking the wheel, like that song.
Yes.
From Carrie Underwood, and he's driving and he's in charge, and this feels good. Just sit back and just let him take control. Like, it's the best feeling in the world once you discipline yourself to do it.
Right.
But it is a discipline.
It is, and we're human. We're gonna have those days.
Mm-hmm. We are going to have those days.
But
we forget who we are.
We forget who God is.
Mm-hmm.
If you're suffering with addiction or alcoholism, or you're the enabler, and then look, I hate it. It's such a enabling is such a tricky. I feel people are insulted when they are called that, and it's not. It just means you're a loving person. We're all flawed. We all have some sort of codependency, but like there is help out there for that as well. Like, if you really know somebody is pulling at you, draining you of your energy, your life force, you need to let them go, and you need to hand them over to God. And I know that's so much easier. I said it to my dad. I knew there were times he probably, if I hit him up for money, or I blamed him for my childhood, like there were times he really should have told me to go where. You know what I mean? And he didn't. And I know that's hard, but there is hope, there's healing, and like you said, you get to be of service, right? You get to spread it forward, and that's what you've done.
Play it forward.
Exactly, pay it forward, and you're such a joy, you're such a light, and I was really honored when you asked me to do this. I mean, I try to do my best, and I hope if anybody, is suffering, to know that there is a loving God, And like I said, if you're hung up on God, you know, the word God, just know He's not hung up on you. So I'm just saying, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
He's there for you for you know, very best. But going through the process, from what I've learned from the 12-step program, is 12-step, and it related to this because God kept saying to me, find out about the 12-step, find out about the 12-step. And I didn't realize that the 12-step program is spiritual ascension. It's what it is. I mean, your higher self, it's like being the best you can possibly be. And even like you said, you can call it your higher self, call it Buddha, call it God, whatever you believe in, Jesus Christ. You know, it's just, who is your higher power? Well, or if it's your higher self, you want to be the best version of yourself. That could be your higher self, just wanting to be the best version of yourself.
Right.
Because it's going to lift you up.
Yeah.
To a higher vibration.
Absolutely.
And that vibration is going to radiate to others.
Absolutely.
And it's a domino effect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's beautiful when it happens.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You know, if you're here and you're listening to this, you were meant to be here. There's no accidents. And I hope it helps all of you. And I want to thank Kathy so much, because it takes a lot of courage to share your story with millions of people, because YouTube reaches millions of people.
No, yeah.
But in turn, Kathy's here helping others, you know, with her experience, because I could sit up here and talk all day about it, but I've never been through it. So bringing people that have been through it to you. I mean, I was an enabler at one time, yes, and I can speak on that. But someone that has truly experienced it, and I'm really proud of you. And now Kathy's gone on to help other people with their baby steps, you know, at the beginning, and she's a mentor for them to help show the way. So thank you so much for being here today, Kathy. I really appreciate it. And I just love you so much love in my heart for you.
I love you too. Thank you, Kathy. Honestly, like, I hug you every time I come in the door now.
We love hugs. Lots of hugs. And another thing I want to let you know is, if you do feel like you need help going through the process of healing, my book is available on Amazon, and there's a link in the description box below. It's Pure Inspiration, The Healing from Within, A Journey to Christ-like Consciousness. And it talks about the journey, the obstacles of the journey, how to get over those obstacles of the journey by trusting the journey. So thank you all for being here today, and I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you again to Kathy. Until we meet again, namaste.